Well, we are back, and there have been a few life lessons learned over the past couple weeks. Namely, Mark, that just came down the wire here as we get ready to record. Don't bet on NFL games. If you're an NFL player, that should be pretty clear. As Calvin Ridley now gets a year-long suspension for betting on games when he was injured during this past season.
You know,
Unreal.
I thought it was crazy. We're getting ready. We're so excited. It's been 2 weeks since we've recorded. We're ready to go. It's your birthday. Happy birthday to
Thank you.
our co-host Dan Vasco. It's your second birthday on the show, or is it only your first birthday on the show?
I can't remember if we had one last year when I turned 30.
In the fall of 2020, right?
Yes. So yeah, this would be. I don't know if we recorded a show on March 7th though.
Yeah.
If that's what you meant. But
welcome to Club 31.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm glad to be here.
It is a good year. You know, I always said 30 was kind of nerve wracking, but 31 through like 34 is easy. It's like, oh, whatever. Early 30s doesn't matter at all.
You launch yourself into the 30s fully now. It's official now.
From here on out, it's all about the fives and the zeros.
There you go.
You know, honestly, though, we were talking about recording all day. We're so excited. Then, like 10 minutes ago, not even, the Calvin Ridley news breaks.
Yeah.
I see the tweet from Shefty, and I got to tell you, Dan, that is a clear message from the league that Calvin Ridley gambled on a game. Basically, he was away from the team. He was off the team's active roster. They did the investigation already, determined, at least from the quote I saw from the NFL, determined that he literally had no insider information, that they've already determined all that. And even all that withstanding said, nope, a year, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like that, it sucks.
Well, you gotta set a precedent. I kind of agree with it, actually. As much as we know that gambling is growing and it's becoming a bigger and bigger part of the sport and the sports world, there is a hard line you have to draw. And so if you're going to let Calvin Ridley do this, then you're going to open it up to like, well, where's the gray area and what can be allowed and what cannot. And yeah, they may not have been able to find out exactly, if he had insider trading, but at the same time, he's good friends with a lot of the teammates. Like, you don't know, like, I don't know if they were able to get into all of his text messages and find out if he knew that someone was hurt or whatever. But regardless of that, it's just don't do it. I mean, it's just silly to put yourself in that position. And now he gets a very harsh 1-year sentence. But with that growing interest in gambling, I think this is their way of getting out in front of it before it explodes through every state in the country.
It's a strong statement, and I think a statement they had to make because, again, like I was saying, he was as far away from basically being an active player as you could possibly be, except for maybe like an Adrian Peterson or someone who's like, is he retired? Is he not retired? You know what I mean? Where it's kind of like in that limbo. He is literally as far away from being an active player as you could be, and they give him a year. So I think it sets a really clean precedent by the NFL, and it is absolutely needed because, again, too many times you get hashtag NFL rig trending on Twitter. And the more and more gambling becomes involved, the more and more you're going to keep getting that stuff if you don't set this hard precedent like this.
And it kind of makes things interesting from my point of view with the Falcons and maybe how they approach certain things. I mean, we know that this is such a rich wide receiver class in this upcoming draft. Are the Falcons interested now in taking a flyer on, a Chris Olave or someone, maybe a little bit higher up on their board that they weren't necessarily thinking about getting? I mean, it's just a point of interest, especially with, Calvin Ridley being the clear number one outside receiver, outside of Kyle Pitts. Now it's Russell Gage and company. I mean, you don't feel as great going into next year with that. Granted, they have a lot of other holes. But real quick, the other lesson was don't bring hash oil if you're traveling to and from Russia. For the love of God, Brittany Griner in a tight spot right now.
I'll tell you what, I've lived in Russia for 3 months, and the one thing that this was back in the fall of 2011.
Yeah, you went to Moscow, right?
I lived in Moscow for 3 months, went through that whole airport like she went through. I will say this. You think airports in the America, like post 9/11, are intense with like TSA? You have to walk by like 8 guys with AK-47s when you like are going through customs, and they look at your passport and they're just casually like dangling their AK-47s. It is terrifying. And
Jeez.
what to me is like, obviously Brittany Griner will get out. She'll be okay. They'll cut some sort of deal to State Department. She's a celebrity. She's not going to do time in a real prison time in a Russia jail. I know it's like the charge is 10-year, facing 10-year sentence. But I will say this, Brittany Griner's got to know better in the sense that you are very aware of what countries you can and can't bring that stuff into. And she knew what she was doing from reports because it was like packaged in a way it was trying to be hidden, like trying to sneak it in. It's one thing if you had just no idea and you could say, hell, I didn't know. I fly here from LA where it's legal. And how am I supposed to know? It's just in my pocket. You know what I mean? Where they could maybe claim some leniency, but it's like, if you're trying to hide it and sneak it in, the Russian, especially with the, life lesson number 3, since we've recorded, a lot of things have gone on in the world. Obviously, what's happening with Ukraine. And this is not the time to be messing around with Russia and testing. They got a lot of things going on. Brittany Griner releasing her from prison isn't exactly at the top of the list.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's just don't put yourself in such a poor position like that. I mean, that's rough. I flew back home recently to Chicago for a quick visit with the parents, and my mom needed some flour that they sell in the South here. It's a particular brand of flour to make biscuits and stuff. And I'll tell you, going through TSA with that, they pulled it aside. They had the gloves out. They were pulling it apart very, very slowly, and they were testing the flour. It was hilarious. But yeah, man, they take it seriously. So yeah, just don't bring hash oil, folks, out
to
there
Russia
when you're flying, especially in Russia. So yeah. I think a lesson learned there for Brittany Griner and company. But we are back, as you mentioned. It's been 3 full weeks, actually, since we last recorded. Missed 2 episodes, and then had the week there up until this one. So we're excited to be back. Obviously, as you mentioned, a lot's happened in the world. Few things have happened in the NFL, though, as well, since we last spoke. So we'll touch on a few items like that here in today's show. Marco, appreciate the happy birthday. I am turning 31, so we'll do a little bit of the 31 trivia, and I've got a few questions for Mark regarding
as a fellow
that.
31-year-old, I should be good at this.
Yes, yeah, you should be very good at this. Absolutely. We are quickly approaching the deadline as well to levy the franchise tag, so we're going to see a lot of those types of things happen over the next 24 hours. So next week when we get on the show, we'll have a lot to talk about. We had a couple tags just happen recently here today, and then some other news regarding some quarterbacks and a lot of stuff like that. But before we get into all that, Mark, real quick, just wanted to touch on one of the big things happening in sports over the past few weeks, and that has been the MLB lockout, and both the Players Union, the MLB owners not budging really at all. We just heard yesterday that the Players Union actually agreed to banning the shift, and among other things, including they were willing to put trademarks and sponsors on their jerseys, all of these things, but really no leeway made here from the owner side, Mark. And we already had the first week of games canceled, likely to be a lot more. It's kind of a bummer, obviously, since the NFL season ended. NBA playoffs are something we can look forward to, and the NHL not far away either. But opening day is one of those holidays here in America, and we're not going to get it, at least for quite some time.
There's only 365 days in a year, not counting leap years, and the NFL consumes so much of the calendar, right? The NFL, and listen, this is NFL.
I mean, pretty much all of it, yeah.
We're an NFL show. The NFL is king. I mean, you look at the ratings, they dominate. And football in general is king, because even college football is the next most dominant rating sport in America. And the problem in baseball, it's stuff like this that kills them even more. They're already losing so much space on the calendar. The one thing that baseball, there's like two real portions of the calendar that no matter what, baseball always has a lot of excitement. It is that week leading up to opening day, and then like the 2 first full weeks of baseball. There's like that 3-week span, late March to early April. The tournament's winding down. The first 2 weekends of March Madness have died down. So the games are more malleable, and it's like, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, less games, and you can focus more on baseball. It's before the NHL playoffs, it's before the NBA playoffs. And then the baseball world of the summer, people aren't watching sports as much in the summer. And baseball, they have their time throughout the summer. But then that last like week and a half, 2 weeks of the playoff push, and then that first round or two of the playoffs, the MLB has some calendar, and that's really it. And they're giving up now this huge portion of their calendar. And the NFL, remember, is giving them less because eventually the NFL will get to an 18-game regular season, and you're going to have the Super Bowl eventually at the third week of February. You're going to get it on President's Day weekend, or what is that? Not President's Day. Is it President's Day?
Yeah, it would be President's Day. Yep.
We have Monday off work, and then the Super Bowl dominates for 2 weeks of the media cycle, a post Super Bowl, and then you're going to be right into free agency. And baseball, they're being horribly mismanaged by Rob Manfred. The owners just don't. It doesn't make sense why they're doing what they're doing, and I think it's a shame. Baseball is quickly dwindling down my priority list of viewing. I'm an NFL guy first, NCAA football guy second, NBA three. And then on any given night, major golf to me is a huge more priority than baseball. Even if it was like the only way I'm choosing baseball over like a major would be like if it's like Cubs in the World Series. Now, I know it doesn't line up that way in the calendar, but I'm just saying as far as priorities,
that would be what's required. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be what's required. And baseball is then they're battling now for my eyeball attention with things like NASCAR, NHL, and Premier League soccer. If it's the Tottenham Go Hotspurs, it's not as a big of a priority, and it's their own fault. They're not capitalizing on the calendar at all.
No, they're not, and obviously the owners themselves probably aren't losing a whole lot of money at the beginning portions of the season outside of opening day. Because of just like the weather in a lot of areas, or people still aren't going to all of the games yet. But overall, it hurts the sport. But this is nothing new. MLB has been notoriously out of touch with its own fan base, and finally we were getting the DH this year across the National League. That was something that a lot of people have been waiting a long time for, looking forward to. And of course, that season, as of right now, is shortened and is getting shorter by the day. So we'll see. This is something to obviously monitor and keep looking forward to. But right now, it's not seeming like much room is being made on either side of these negotiations. We'll just have to hope for the best as the weeks kind of progress here. But spring training not happening, and we'll see what happens in the coming days. As for the NFL, Mark, we've had quite a bit of, drama, to say the least, with Aaron Rodgers, of course. I mean, that's kind of been the big storyline throughout the offseason here to begin it. And, there's all these rumors about Tom Brady going back to San Fran. I don't think you're convinced of that. I'm certainly not.
No.
I think when he retires, he's retiring, and it's a done deal for Tom Brady and company. But, speaking of these quarterbacks, we had that initial report of Kyler Murray, removing the Cardinals from his Instagram page and all of that stuff. And a lot of times it's like, okay, these guys are just being petty and trying to get a message across. But then there was some more teeth to it when Kyler Murray's agent released that, diatribe, if you will, talking about how he essentially just wants more money and wants that big money deal. And then on the other side, we're getting all of these reports with Aaron Rodgers that it's pretty much a toss-up whether or not he's coming back to Green Bay or going to test the waters and want a trade, in which case Denver and Pittsburgh seem to be the top players for Aaron Rodgers. So I'll let you choose kind of which one you want to attack first, but both of these quarterbacks gaining a lot of attention here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, listen, I think Brady is going to relish and love the fact that he's the new Brett Favre, where everyone will just talk
Yeah.
about, hey, you could call Brady, call Brady. You know he's going to be in good shape. You know he can play. Brady will get that for the next 10 years. And I think he's going to relish in it, but I think he's done. I don't buy in any of that until I actually hear a statement from Tom Brady or he's on a plane doing a workout. I'm not buying any of it. And then as far Kyler Murray goes, I think it's very clear and very obvious. The Cardinal, first off, if I'm Kyler Murray, I either fire my agent because if he did that rogue without your consent and you weren't 100% behind it, I'd absolutely fire him. And secondly, I would fire him because if I was Kyler Murray and I decided this was a good idea, and my agent actually let himself post it, like convince it, then he doesn't have your best interest in heart, anyways. Like that's terrible. It's such a bad look. He's in no position to negotiate right now. He's a first-round quarterback who's still making decent money. It's not like he's Dak Prescott, you know what I mean, making less than $500,000. And you know, what does he have to stand on right now? The contract that I would offer him would be nothing better than like what Ryan Tannehill has. You're not giving you Josh Allen money. I'm not giving you what I'm going to give Lamar Jackson. I'm not giving you what I gave Mahomes. What do you have to stand on? I'm not giving you what I'm going to give Burrow. He just took his team to a Super Bowl, who has a lot less talent than Arizona. Arizona's invested heavily in surrounding Kyler Murray with talent. And what happens? He's, you are the last undefeated team. You get injured, and then the second half of your season is a disaster in which you get blown out at home by your division rival. Not at home, but blown out in the playoffs by your division rival. There's just a terrible time to negotiate it. And I get it. If you want long-term security because now you're concerned you're small and you're going to get injured, fine, but don't expect Brinks truck money. I would give him, 75, 80 million guaranteed, 4 years, 100 million. If he wants to sign that deal, I would be happy if I'm the Cardinals. And maybe Kyler Murray would be willing to sign that deal because he just wants some security, some guaranteed money to make sure him and his family are good, knowing that he's, now could be injury prone with what he dealt with. It's a terrible look. I also think the Cardinals are giving such a strong response to Kyler Murray in the sense of signing their GM Keim and Kingsbury to long-term extensions, basically saying, listen, we are not going to be handcuffed by Kyler Murray. We are not going to be just sitting here and hoping, and the whole, season's a disaster if Kyler Murray doesn't show up. Kyler Murray could legitimately hold out. I think he's that type of guy. I think he's a little out there. He's different. I think he clearly doesn't get it. Again, if he approved this message or if him and his agent thought this was the right way to go, clearly doesn't get it. And I think if you're the Arizona Cardinals, you should be aggressive then for a Mitchell Trubisky, a Jameis Winston, and say, listen, all right, with Kyler, we want you here, but we're not going to let you just hamstring our season, pun intended, and go from there. So I think it's a bad look for Kyler. I'm not the biggest Kyler Murray fan, never was, but this certainly knocks him lower on my list. I mean, there's a lot of guys I would pay before Kyler Murray, and there's a lot of guys I certainly would be willing to throw the Brinks truck at and hamstring my franchise. Kyler Murray's not one of them.
Yeah, it's public image has really never been his strong suit, right? Like even from the jump, I remember that interview with Dan Patrick before the draft.
Weird. Yeah.
It was so strange. It's like, how were you not prepared for these very basic questions? That was kind of the start of it all. And it's not like he's been bad in the sense of like how Johnny Manziel was bad with public image. Kyler hasn't done anything like bad. It's just that he's handled things kind of like, in a strange way. And this is, just the latest installment. And I'm glad you brought it up, the production element, because to me, that's the biggest thing. Like you haven't, like, yes, you guys gotten increasingly better each year, but like that was from like 3 wins. So like, sorry if we're not crowning you from getting from like 3 wins to now you got the DeAndre Hopkins trade, James Conner, JJ Watt, and yourself. Like they made huge moves.
Ertz in the middle of the season.
Yes. So there, you're not the only factor in this team's success over that time. And the success has been, relative to the regular season, because it's not like you guys have stacked playoff wins at all. and you're not playing at a level where you're like, oh my God, this guy's the best player in the league, like Lamar was just a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
like Josh Allen has been. So I agree with you on that aspect that you can't just demand because you are one of the better young up and coming quarterbacks that all of a sudden you are now owed all of this stuff and just the money bag being rolled out. And they have a lot of guys to pay too. So I agree with what you said there about him. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously the Cardinals are better with him than if they went this alternative route, whatever they're gonna try and get. Mitch Trubisky certainly would be a downgrade, and then they'd have to work through the draft again to find another quarterback. But in the meantime, I think they'll find some sort of middle ground here to appease both sides. But yeah, Kyler's not going to get the huge mega deal, at least not yet. But I mean, if you get a deal right now, you can always push for another one if you are able to stack some more leverage in the next couple years, win a couple playoff games, and then talk.
If I was in Kyler Murray's camp right now, I'd be very honest with him. I'd say if the Cardinals are offering you anything where there's north of 70, 80 million guaranteed, and it's 4 years, 5 years, I would absolutely take it. And you're going to still be young in 5 years from now. You won't even be 30 years old. You can get another big contract, earn it. But that 80 million secures the bag, secures the family, generational wealth. If that's what you're really concerned about. If I'm the Cardinals, I'm not offering him any more than that. I still own his rights for 2 more years plus franchise tags. I'm just not doing it. He has not shown enough to where I will put blind faith in it. The Chiefs put blind faith in Mahomes. The Bills put blind faith in Allen. The Ravens will do that with Lamar. The Bengals will do that with Burrow. They all should. I think they've all earned it way more than Kyler.
Yeah, that's why it's not completely blind.
Yeah,
because they've at least seen it.
Yeah. So it is. I think it's a bad move, and we'll see. We'll wait and see. I think Kyler Murray holdout situation could be a real storyline this offseason.
It could, and he can take that well into the the post draft era, which will really hamstring Arizona in terms of how they are going to go about their business with the draft and free agency if they're unclear about what's going on with that. Aaron Rodgers, what are your thoughts here? Like, I mean, because I'm leaning him still staying in Green Bay just because to me it just makes the most sense, and you're comfortable there, and the NFC North just sucks. I mean, like if your path to the Super Bowl is still easiest, in my opinion, in Green Bay.
Well, and it's still easiest just in the NFC right now. I mean, the NFC South a disaster. The NFC West has the Rams, and then the Seahawks. I don't think will be down to. I mean, we'll see. I think they'll rebound. I don't know if they'll be Super Bowl rebound. We wait to see what the quarterback situation with the Niners. Obviously, we just talked about Arizona, and then what? You're scared of the Cowboys? I mean, the NFC is easier. There's depth in the NFC. It's good, but it's just easier right now. Listen, Aaron Rodgers. With the speculation, I'm exhausted. To me, it sounds like Aaron Rodgers just wants to get paid. He wants a big bag. He wants a 3-year, close to $50 million a year deal guaranteed. And he will, ride it on out there and say, all right, let's just do this. And he'll be content. I think Aaron Rodgers is content at this point in time saying stack up a bunch of money. Money's going to be really important to him in whatever his post-playing mission is. And I think that's fair. If I was Green Bay, I would try to do it because, again, right now in the NFC, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you're just in a much better position than 90% of the NFC. And it'll be that way for at least the next year or two. I don't think things changing dramatically over the next 2 seasons. But, who knows where rookies can develop and young players in 3-4 years from now. You just can't predict that far. But for the next 2 years, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you are an NFC title championship game contender. And so if you're the Packers, I would do it. I would sign him. I would try to make him happy. And I would kind of do what the Saints did the past couple of years. Just keep pushing money off. Just go all in, pay some luxury tax stuff, and keep going for it. It's the best option for the Packers. I think it's the best option for Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people, I get it. The talent is better in Denver and Pittsburgh right now, but look at those divisions. I just don't think that's something Aaron Rodgers wants to deal with. If I was Aaron, I wouldn't want to deal with it. I'm looking at Detroit, Minnesota, and Chicago. A lot easier than Las Vegas, Kansas City, and LA 2 times a year.
100%. And they're comparable situations. So kind of let's explore the devil's advocate here. Should he decide to move on and explore a trade option with what is being reported as the top two contenders there being Pittsburgh and Denver? Those situations, in my view, are so incredibly similar. I mean, almost
Yeah.
exact. The divisions are roughly equally as difficult, probably a little bit of an edge to the AFC West just because it's Mahomes. But you have Mahomes, Herbert, and Carr to contend with. And you got Lamar Jackson and Burrow, who just got to a Super Bowl, and
Yeah.
then a very capable Browns team that obviously plays really good football in the trenches. So not easy divisions to get into. Both cold weather spots, both in the AFC, both young, talented pieces on offense. You maybe get a little bit of an edge to Denver on their offensive line, but not by a huge margin. So really, these situations are almost identical. So it's hard for me to necessarily say which one would be better. I would lean, and it's not just because I'm a Steelers fan, but I would lean Pittsburgh in terms of I think he would have a better chance, given what we saw with the Ravens and Lamar this year, somewhat take a step back. There might be a little bit better of a window there, especially with the Bengals still having some
Yeah.
issues throughout that team, despite getting to the Super Bowl. I think maybe he has a better road. And we already know his relationship with Tomlin is pretty rock solid. Granted, Nathaniel Hackett is
Yeah.
a guy he's familiar with. So yeah, I mean these situations are pretty hard to parse through. But I would say Pittsburgh. But
I got to be honest. If I'm Aaron Rodgers and I'm demanding a trade, the team I actually demand a trade to would be Nashville and Tennessee, the Titans. I think
yeah, that's a good situation.
I think that's the best situation. The division's the easiest. The talent's all there.
Or the Colts. What about the Colts? Because we're hearing Wentz is not a guy that.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. The AFC South. If you can get to Indy, or if you can, and Frank Reich's an offensive guy. If you can get to Indy, or you can get, you have great running backs on either spot in Tennessee or Indy. I think those are better spots if he's demanding a trade. I don't know if he loves Indy as much. Indy and Denver, you're following the Peyton thing, and it's a little bit weird. It doesn't feel as right, but Pittsburgh, I think it's easy for him to come in and follow Big Ben. They're such different players, and he is historically better than Big Ben. And I think, but I think for Tennessee, it would be an easy one for him to just, unseat Ryan Tannehill, take over throwing to Brown, Jones, hand the ball off to Derrick Henry, and let Mike Vrabel coach up that defense and beat up on Jacksonville and Houston 2 times a year. It's a lot like beating up on Chicago and Detroit 2 times a year.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, all eyes are going to be on Aaron Rodgers. Reports have been constantly saying, "Oh, any day now," and I think the latest was like within 48 hours. But it's just it'll happen when it happens, basically, because none of these timelines are really panning out. The new league year does start March 16th, so I think it's pretty safe to say a decision will likely have to come by that time. But that still gives us, quite a few days here, about 9. So yeah, we'll have a lot more to talk about next Monday in that regard for sure. A couple things that came down the wire the last day or so, and especially today. Jack Doyle retired from the NFL. That was kind of a surprise. Still a relatively young tight end, and very productive guy. Kind of that dual threat, able to do well inline blocking, but also good route runner and red zone guy. But he's gone, so it looks like Indy, has a gap to fill somewhat at the tight end spot there. Kyle Van Noy was released by the Patriots. That was a bit of a surprise to me as well. I feel like there's going to be quite a few suitors out there for him.
For sure.
One of those guys that can cover in space, and that's kind of what you want out of your middle linebacker throughout the league. So that'll be interesting. And then the final bit of news was Amari Cooper is reportedly going to be released by Dallas. We'll see if that actually ends up happening, if this is some sort of, kind of like not a threat, but something to put out there to maybe nudge something in one direction. But that's an interesting piece, considering the stark difference between how Dak performs with Amari on the field versus without Amari on the field.
I think that's the biggest one to touch on. And I think listen, the Cowboys were willing to give Amari Cooper $20 million a year when they signed him to the deal 2 years ago. I don't know why they're feeling like they can't do it now. Unless, I mean, Jerry was very vocal that he was upset that Amari Cooper did not get vaccinated and, miss some time, cost some stuff. That shouldn't matter now, as we're going to talk about here in a second, that the guidelines have changed for the NFL and COVID. But listen, Amari Cooper is the type of guy on the open market. He will find a place. He will be he's a number one target for the next 2 or 3 years still in his career. I would prefer, a lot of people immediately like Bears. I like Allen Robinson more than I like Amari Cooper. I got to be honest. I think trying to bring back Allen and convince him to stay in Chicago versus Amari Cooper. But I think Amari Cooper's market is very much, can he get himself anywhere from like 12 max $15 million a year on a 3-year deal to be with a contender, or to be with a team that is a young quarterback who wants a sure-handed, great route running number one guy who could lead your locker room. Maybe even a reunion with Derek Carr. I mean, this is the type of move Derek Carr could use an Amari Cooper out in the loaded AFC West. So plenty of suitors for him. He'll be fine. I think it's a dumb move by the Cowboys. Honestly, Dak and the Cowboys are all about offense. You can't rely on that defense to be that elite every year. That is always going to come in waves, but what doesn't go in ways is having a bunch of great wide receivers. You already have them in building. Try to renegotiate the contract, maybe. You know what I mean? Put some money off. You don't want to do the $20 million guaranteed. There's got to be a way to maneuver some of that money. The NFL is always clever with that. It's interesting to keep an eye out for, but he will be sought after. He will not be jobless for long if he actually does get released.
Yeah, and I mean, their depth is actually pretty thin once you get outside of those top 3 guys. So that's why it matters so much. I mean, CD is a very talented guy, but I don't know if we know yet if he's a true number one receiver type, and how much maybe he's benefited from having Amari there at times as well. So if you're the Cowboys, I mean, you got to hang on to your best players. I still think the Zeke deal has really hurt them the most over the last several years. I mean, they're putting themselves in this position.
If they could, you would rather get rid of Zeke at this point, but you can't. His money's worse. Yep. So that could be too as well. The Cowboys, I mean, listen, that deal has always been a bad deal since day one. And it may cost the Cowboys a really, really good wide receiver that they need to help win games.
I mean, you got Tony Pollard in house, who has been more than, he's been fantastic, especially this past year. And drafting running backs, you can find gems at running back in the 6th, 7th round, even undrafted. So that, it's a little bit easier to replace than, a premier wide receiver. So
agreed.
We'll see what Dallas ends up doing. But I think both of us agree it'd probably be a mistake and would set this team back versus keeping them on that trajectory to try and move up and getting better. Tuesday, 4:00 is the deadline for franchise tagging. So got some activity so far today, as of our knowledge, as of the time of this recording, about 4:30 Eastern time. David Njoku has been tagged by the Cleveland Browns, the tight end there. So to me, that's kind of interesting because they just made Austin Hooper the highest paid tight end not too long ago.
Last year.
And then now you've got David Njoku getting a $10 million tag for tight end, and he wasn't used very much last year. So I don't know if this is a changing of the guard. I know Kevin Stefanski likes having the 2 tight end sets, so maybe that's just kind of what they prioritize within this offense. And then the Chiefs putting the franchise tag on Orlando Brown at left tackle. So that's a smart move, obviously, I think we would say, given how they were able to have that great turnaround on their offensive line in one season. He was a big reason for that. Still probably the best, if not top 3 left tackles in the game right now. So those are the current franchise tags we have, but others potentially coming up much later in the next 24 hours, including Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I think I love both moves made. I think the Browns giving Njoku another year, tagging him and trying to make it work, with this current roster as constructed makes sense. And I think for the Chiefs, obviously the goal is to get a long-term deal down with Orlando Brown Jr. You don't trade for him and then just keep him for 1 year and let him go. So if you couldn't make the money work in a long-term deal, get him a tag. He'll get his guaranteed money, protect Mahomes for another year, and throughout the year, try to work desperately to make sure you lock him up for a nice chunk of the rest of Patrick Mahomes' 9 years or 8 years he'll have left on his deal after that.
Absolutely. All right, Mark. Before we get into our recap of our bold predictions for the 2021 NFL
Yeah.
season, in which we will hold each other accountable thoroughly for what we got right and what we got terribly wrong, I have a couple of those that we'll definitely go over. But considering it is my birthday, turned 31, I have a couple tidbits here for some trivia on the number 31 and some other things as well. So we'll just start off here, okay? This one's a bit obscure, so it's going to be a little bit difficult. I'll try and give you some hints along the way. 31 rushing touchdowns for their career. Two players currently playing in the NFL right now have 31 rushing touchdowns. One of them is a quarterback.
Josh
One
Allen.
of them is a running back. The quarterback is Josh Allen, drafted in 2018. Already has 31 rushing touchdowns.
Running back, 31 touchdowns.
This running back just finished his 5th year in the NFL.
Just finished his 5th year in the NFL. Derrick Henry?
Nope. Super Bowl champion, in fact.
Of this year?
Not this year. But he is a Super Bowl champion.
Was
a very, very good college running back.
Leonard Fournette.
Leonard Fournette. That's right. The other one, there were only a few that had 31 rushing touchdowns for their career. This one was an all-pro and a phenomenal Cleveland Brown. I'm wondering if you know the name, from the 40s into the 50s, just before Jim Brown. 31 career rushing touchdowns, but he had a couple seasons where he was like one of the best, if not the best in the league. I don't know if you can. Marion Motley. So there you go. I knew that was probably going to be a tough one. Super Bowl 31 was the Pats versus the Packers. This is the game where Brett Favre infamously audibled to 59 Razor, which was a play that he watched in the hotel room from Joe Montana doing it in Super Bowl 24. It ended up being a 54-yard touchdown pass against the Patriots. Who was on the receiving end of that touchdown pass?
Brett
Favre.
Was it Sharp? Sterling Sharp?
It was not Sterling Sharp. That was a good guess, though.
I don't know.
This guy I think he played for 3 NFL teams during his time, but this was a post-pattern. Andre Rison. Andre Rison.
Okay.
Yep. Black 59 Razor from Brett Favre on that one. 4 quarterbacks in their careers have beaten 31 teams. There's only a few that have beaten all teams.
32.
But there's 4 that have beaten 31.
Big Ben.
Can you name all 4? We'll see if you can get all 4.
Is it Big Ben?
Big Ben is one of them, yes.
Did Phillip Rivers, or did he beat the Colts? Did he beat the Chargers? Is it Rivers?
Phillip Rivers is not on the list. I believe he beat 30 teams.
So I'm going to go Big Ben, Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. So you got 2 more, one of which is not remotely Hall of Fame. The other guy's not a Hall of Famer either, but was a pretty solid quarterback. Same era as Big Ben. The other one was before Big Ben, and that guy was a journeyman for sure.
I don't know. You
played in a Super Bowl though.
I'm drawing a total blank.
Alex Smith.
Oh,
believe it or not, and Kerry Collins rounds out the top 4.
Very
so
cool.
I would have thought Vinny Testaverde maybe, just because the guy played forever, but yeah. All right, now a few number 31s, epic number 31s who have worn the number 31 in their careers. This is not just NFL. I kind of combined a few different sports in this one as well.
Priest Holmes.
One of these guys, I didn't actually put Priest Holmes on here. I should have, though. That was a good call. I kind of just took a random compilation of these. Some of them are Hall of Famers. Some of them are just really good. This one had 437 career home runs. A Hall of Famer in Major League Baseball, just had his jersey retired not that long ago. Played for the Mets.
Mike Piazza.
This is a running back from the late 90s to late 2000s. Part of the 2,000-yard rushing club.
Jamal Anderson?
No. I think you're just mixing the names up, because it is a Jamal. But it's not Anderson.
It's from the Ravens, Jamal.
Yep. Jamal Lewis.
It
was close.
All right. Brain was there.
This guy was featured thoroughly throughout the Last Dance documentary series. Was a infamous 3-point specialist, a Hall of Famer, and he played.
Oh, Reggie Miller.
Yep, that's right, Reggie Miller. All right, now we'll get into some pitchers here. 2 pitchers. One, there's a big debate on whether or not he's the GOAT. Played for the Cubs, the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Padres. Greg Maddux. And one of the other ones, not a Hall of Famer, wouldn't be eligible yet, but did win a World Series.
Max Scherzer?
Southpaw. Nope.
31.
People in the Midwest would be familiar with him.
Clayton Kershaw?
Nope.
No? All right, who is it?
It is John Lester.
Lester.
Lefty John Lester.
That's bad on me. I should have known Lester.
And then finally, we'll go with another NFL guy. Not in the Hall of Fame. He's been out of the league, I want to say five years maybe. Played on one of the greatest defenses ever. Kind of redefined the safety position in some ways. And won a Super Bowl. His signature was his size. He was very, very large for being a safety.
Oh. Why am I drawing a blank on this? Can't tell me it. I don't know. Why am I drawing
Legion
a blank?
of Boom.
Oh, Cam Chancellor.
Cam Chancellor. That's right. Yeah. So those are a few number 31s there. I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with that. Before we get into our bold predictions, Mark, do you want to break out the Super Bowl odds that I know that you kind of had looked at and want to share some of those?
There was only one thing that really so this was a post on Twitter, and it was like a team's odds to win the Super Bowl at this time last year and this time this year, 2022. And the one that's the craziest of all is the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals at this time last year were plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl. That is akin to the Jets, the Texans, the Detroit Lions. This year they're at plus 200. Plus 200. Which puts them only behind the Bills, the Ravens, the Titans, the Colts, and the Chiefs in the AFC. So that also means the Colts, what's interesting is there's a lot of maybe talk about Aaron Rodgers with the Colts and the Titans.
Yep.
And then the only other thing in the NFC, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. There is a team in where did it go? Oh, in the NFC South, to me, that is really odd, and I was hoping you had an idea about this. The Panthers at this time last year were plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. This year, they're only plus 375. I mean, much better odds. And does that mean, do you have any inkling that there was some talks that the Panthers could be getting aggressive in the quarterback market? Because that's the only thing that could lead me to think that why the Panthers might have that high odds right now.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any reports that have shown that they have high interest in any one particular quarterback, but they are absolutely in play for one. They owe Sam Darnold some money, sure, but it's not something they can't get out from underneath. They are still very much in that conversation, and that would be a great destination. I mean, they have a very, very good up-and-coming defense, tons of offensive weapons, one of the best, if not the best running back in the NFL. A lot of enticing stuff there, but yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering, what Vegas knows that we don't. I am curious who could potentially be this year's Bengals having such low odds.
Who's really low,
but with a shot to make the Super Bowl.
So
somehow.
Anything plus, these are the only teams that have plus over 1,000 right now. It's the Jets, the Texans. And that's it. They're the only teams right now that have over 1,000 plus.
And you said the Bengals were plus 2,500 at one point.
The Raiders right now are plus 800. I feel like that's pretty decent value if you're going long shot, depending if they can bring back Derek Carr and maybe make a move or two with Josh McDaniels. But we'll do a whole odds thing later on. I just thought those were pretty interesting to me. And now we'll get to embarrassing ourselves.
Yeah. Let's hold each other accountable here. We'll start with Mark's bold predictions. Actually, we can alternate. We'll alternate.
All right.
So your first bold prediction that you had coming into the 2021 season was that all first-round quarterbacks would start by week 6, and you made it. You got that one correct. Just by the skin of your teeth, though, Trey Lance making his first career start in week 5.
Let's go.
At Arizona. Of course, Justin Fields went in week 3, and then we had Wilson, Lawrence, Jones all making their starts to begin the season. So no surprise there from those quarterbacks, but it was the Trey Lance question mark and the Justin Fields one for a time there as well. But You were able to make that one. You got that one correct. My first one was that no coaches would get fired mid-season, and boy, were we looking good. I was feeling
And then
real
Urban,
good up until we heard about
you got
some.
sticky fingers.
Yes, that's right. Um,
And
even if we didn't count,
John Gruden sent emails.
and even if we didn't count that one because it was technically a resignation,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have mattered because just about a month or so later, Urban Meyer, got himself in some hot water and, kicked kickers and got himself fired mid-December. So that threw a wrench in my whole plan there.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be super smart, ended up not. So 2 coaches went out by midseason. Mark's bold prediction: Bucks would be the only team in the NFC South over 500, and it wasn't outlandish. It was close, but the Saints finished 9-8. So they just got there. They just got there at 9-8. So you were close though, man. Like you definitely had that.
I feel good about that one looking back. This year's NFC South prediction might be no team finishes over 500.
Yeah, right. No kidding. That's gonna be. Good Lord, it's gonna be an intense one. Well, we'll revisit the NFC South in a bit because I'm quite embarrassed. I had the Rams being the number 1 seed in the NFC, and while for a large portion of the season that looked to be the case, they actually ended up as the 4 seed. So I got that one wrong.
Yep.
Still in the losing column right now.
Here's
for that
my
first
Seahawks.
win. That's right. Yeah. The 49ers and the Cardinals would miss the playoffs was your third prediction.
Oh crap. I forgot about that one. Yeah.
They both made it. So Arizona finished 11-6, although they completely, fell apart at the end of the year. San Francisco made it at 10-7. They got in there. So 1-2 so far for Mark, 0-2 so far for myself. But we've got redemption around the corner as I called Rodgers going back-to-back MVP.
You did.
I got that one.
Kudos.
Through. Thank you. Appreciate it. Number 4 for you was that Tua won't start 17 games, and you were correct by a large margin too. It wasn't like he started, 15 or 16. He only started 12, with Jacoby Brissett getting the other 5.
Can I insert? I was waiting for this, and that's why I'm going to insert my fun stat. I told you I had.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, you did have one.
Tua Tagovailoa and Davis Mills. This is from CBS, NFL and CBS, had really similar seasons. You see this on Twitter.
Interesting.
Both of them are 23. Both of them started 13 games. Both Tua and Davis Mills had 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Both had 263 completions, and both threw for 6.8 yards an attempt. Davis Mills and Tua were the same quarterback this year.
Interesting. And one had a significantly better team. So, wow. How about that? That is interesting. I would never have guessed that. Number 4 for me was that Derrick Henry would set the single season rushing record, and
the injury derailed him.
We all know how that played out. So he was on pace actually for 1,991 yards after playing 8 games in the season. So, just below pace to set the record. So he wasn't even, at that round, but we'll never know because he only played those 8 games and then was shut down until the playoffs. So, lost that one yet, but don't feel too bad about missing on that one. This other one, you're just barely getting by here with some of these. Herbert would have more touchdown passes, you said, than Patrick Mahomes. And he had 1 more touchdown pass than Patrick Mahomes.
And the Saints one is killing me. I'm so pissed about that. I forgot about that one.
And they really shouldn't have. I mean, the Saints were, after the Jameis Winston injury, were like dead in the water, but they somehow put it together. But, I mean, if you did a parlay of saying somehow if there was a bet available that all first-round quarterbacks would start by week 6, that Herbert would have more touchdown passes than Mahomes, and that Tua won't start 17 games, you might be a millionaire today.
Honestly, yes, but I'm not.
That would be interesting. So when we do our bold predictions for next year, maybe think about it and see if you can find some sports book with that. Yeah. My final one, and just the most egregious, something that would probably disqualify me from ever being able to comment on NFL games. I said, man, I even packaged these together because for some reason that was smart. That the Panthers would win the NFC South, resulting in Matt Rule being named Coach of the Year.
Really bold.
And instead, the man was on the hot seat for the entire season. They finished dead last in the NFC South with a 5-12 record. But I will say this, I was feeling great in September about this prediction as they started 3-0 with Sam Darnold leading the league in rushing touchdowns.
I will say this about you. All I can say that is for that one is you should have a Tecate Light tonight, because Tecate Light, fortune favors the bold. Tecate Light.
Yeah, there you go. You know what? I think, though, as a punishment, Malort seems about more in line with what I deserve to drink this evening.
So I think overall, I did better with my bold predictions. Now
you did. So I got one correct out of 5.
I will say yours,
3.
You had the boldest of bold, though. You stuck your neck out with that Panthers pick.
I did go all out on a lot of them.
You did, yeah.
But the Rodgers one was the only one I got the win on. I'm curious to see if you'll think Herbert will repeat more touchdown passes than Mahomes next season, because they're neck and neck, 38 to 37.
Lots going to depend on Mike Williams where he ends up.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. That's a fun way to. Listen. We've gone a couple weeks. As we're wrapping up this episode, that's a fun way to look back. It's we'll had to laugh at each other a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. We got to have a little fun, hold each other accountable, and show that yes, we are all human. Although I know all of you listeners know that we are the smartest NFL minds that are out here in the country. But,
pretty much.
We can get it wrong every now and then as well. But really excited for the weeks ahead here, Mark. We have, as we mentioned, the deadline next week. We have the franchise tag deadline tomorrow. We have the free agency, and we have the draft coming up as well. So tons of stuff.
We haven't even talked about the 8.5-inch hand size for Pickett.
For Kenny Pickett. That's right.
We will. Trust me, we will.
We've got that covered, and a lot from the combine and NFL draft speculation that we all know and love to be a huge part of the NFL season. So next week we'll be able to recap the franchise tag deadline, preview free agency, which the coming week after that will be huge in that development. And then after that, we're going right into some mock drafts and some, preseason stuff. And, and then we got the draft coming up in April. So a lot to get to. We're going to have some fun episodes, as always, to look forward to this summer as well. But for now, we'll leave it at that. And just hit us up next week as we kind of look ahead to free agency. So
if there's anything you want us to touch on in the offseason, now is the time. Now we're not recapping games, so now's the time. We'll do best of lists. We'll have some fun with stuff like that as well. So now is the time to have some fun, get a little crazy.
Yeah, let us know. We've done our top 10 quarterbacks. We've done our top 10 running backs. There are, quite a few interesting things we can do. Top 10 busts. We can look into, some of the better, NFL storylines or whatever. Yeah, let us know for sure. Tweet at us at FB Lounge Pod, at Mark Hespin, at Dan Basco. We got it on Facebook as well. And stay tuned. We're happy to be back, and we'll be off and running once again next week.